Welcome to day number 7, and hopefully this is the last day doing all this building work. So today I've got to sort the fan out, I've got to do the electrics, I've got to do some plastering, and I've got to put the bath in. But before we get on with that, let's have a look and see where we're up to. So let's see what we got then. Now, first job, I need to remove this old fan. Now I've isolated the power because it's actually got its own fuse spur and switch near the light switch, but when I'm testing it, we've still got power. Still got voltage on it. Now I've isolated the power to the whole house at the consumer unit. It's dead now. Now, after further investigation, what I did find out why this was still live was they'd taken the live neutral and earth from a fuse spur and the switched live wire from the light switch in the bathroom. So when the lights were on, this was always live. Well, it's not like being a bit dangerous, is it? Earth wire running there as well. That earth wire is the earth wire going to the cold water main, which I've moved under the bath. Right, let's get these taped up. I think this proves always check your electrics are isolated before you work on them. And what I'm doing is filling in the big gaps with expanding foam because I'm going to be plastering this bit. I also want to give a lot of strength to this area because there's not a lot of the wall left here. Now I'm using this no-nonsense expanding PU fixing foam, which has excellent acoustic and thermal insulation characteristics. It also adheres to most substances, it is paintable, and you can sand it. So what I've done is I've replaced the inner flexible tube inside with this piece of soil pipe, slid it onto the outer guard. And then I just filled this extra bit in here with some foam because I'm going to plaster this bit up here. I've got to do the same over there and then I can plaster all this up. But first of all, I want to do all the electrics first to make sure that everything works. So I'm going to fill this bit in here, let that go off, and then I'm ready for plastering. Now I'm just using my multi-tool here to tidy up the area and get rid of this old grout off the ceiling because, like I say, this is where I'm going to be plastering and I don't want to be plastering over this old grout. Now again, I'm using this expanding foam to fix this corner to fill all the little cracks in the big holes. Now this foam is actually not fire rated, and that's one of the reasons why I'm plastering over the top of it, to give it some kind of fire resistance. Always remember, clean off your excess with a cloth. Or let it dry and then cut it off with a stand knife. Now it's time to mix some plaster. What I always do is mix the plaster outside, because if you do mix it inside, always make sure you wear a dust mask when you're doing this. Make sure you always follow the manufacturer's instructions when you're mixing plaster. To avoid contamination, always use 2 buckets. One bucket for actually mixing the plaster with nice clean fresh water in, and the other bucket for cleaning your tools and equipment. This helps you avoid ending up with a lumpy mix. You can mix plaster in the bucket in two ways. You can do it by hand using a trowel, or you can do it like I'm doing here using a power mixer. This plaster I'm using is British Gypsum Thistle Multi-Finish Plaster. This plaster suits most common backgrounds. It's easy to work with and has a reliable setting time. It offers sound insulation properties of up to 2 decibels. A 25 kilo bag should give you 10 meters squared wall coverage. And if you do it correctly, you shouldn't need to sand it afterwards, but it is sandable. Now if you're not used to plastering, just practice, because you know what practice makes? Yeah, a lot of mess. But keep going at it and you will get better. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just using a squeezy bottle with clean fresh water in it, and what I'm doing is I'm damping the surface of the plaster and then going over it with my trowel, which is going to make it nice and flat and smooth. Now technically I don't need to go too mad with this because we are tiling, but the tiler won't want lumps in the wall, so I will need to do it. Don't try and wet the surface too early. You've literally got to wait till it's touch dry before you do this, and the more times you do it, the smoother and nicer it's going to look and become. And when you've finished plastering, always make sure you clean your tools and equipment, because if you don't, you'll regret it next time you come to plaster, because any little bits of the old plaster mixed in with new plaster will cause you massive problems. Now I can get the bath in, finally. So hopefully I can get the bath in now and my wife can have a bath tonight. She will be pleased. Now, first thing I need to do before I actually install the bath is 1, put the brackets and the legs on, and 2, put the pop-up waist on. First of all, I'm going to put the legs on. Now, because this bath is a different size at either end, we've got 2 different lengths of bars. Obviously the big one goes here and the little one goes down at the bottom. Now what I've done is I've measured the centre of the wood, and I've also measured the centre of the bar, and I've also, where my mark is for the wood, I've just gone up 20mm. So I've got lines now to be able to put the bar on so I can screw them on. Now another important thing is when you're screwing these bars on, is you use the right size screws. So these little 25mm screws have been sent by the manufacturer, and you should use these screws. Don't use any other screws whatsoever, because you could end up going through the bottom of the bath. So never use any other screws other than these, and make sure you lay everything out. So I've laid everything out here on the windowsill, so everything's to hand and I don't get anything mixed up, because when I was an apprentice I did actually screw a screw right through the bottom of a bath. Anyway, my dad was not amused, but let's get this leg on. Now here all I'm doing is marking the holes with my marker pen, so I can use the screws to pre-drill the holes for me to make it easier to fix it. Now these are the legs, so these are actually the feet, which just screw onto there. There's some caps on the bottom there which you can actually screw down, but we'll look at those later. So it's just a matter of putting 2 nuts onto the screw rod and screwing them feet on, and then they lock in, because that's just going to go through the bar. And screw down. So I don't know the height yet, I could work them out, but I'm just going to basically sit it on the wood and adjust the feet to the wood down at the bottom. Makes it so much easier. These bits are rubbish, they don't last very long. Now it's time for the pop-up waste. So this is a seal that goes on there, and it has to go in between here. Now, I've peeled the plastic back so I can get at this, and I'm not really a big lover of putting silicone seal on stuff, but these have been rubbish in the past. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to put a bit of silicone seal in between there. Not too much. And then from below, you have to pop it up, and you get all that lovely silicone all over your hands. Always have loo roll handy when you're doing siliconing. This sits on the bottom, this sits on the top, and then this screws through. And you use a big bladed screwdriver or a nut spinner to screw on that. And again, I'm going to put some silicone around this. Again, not a massive amount, because it just squidges out everywhere if you do. And again, on the bottom part, I'm going to put some silicone around here. So I've got now fit that under the bath. So, oops, that's the top seal. So this goes in line like this. Now for tightening it up, I always find a wood chisel is handy for this. And again, because it's plastic, don't do it too tight, but obviously it's got to be waterproof. Now on this one, you can see the seal fits on the top. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of silicone on there, and a little bit of silicone on the front of here, because this is the bit what screws in, and there's no way you're going to get silicone on that. So that onto there, that through the hole, and then this screws on tight. Again, making sure you're centralised at the back. Yeah. So this is the plug, and you've got an adjuster screw there because of how high you want to pop it up. So that looks a bit rubbish, so we can screw that out a bit and then screw that in, and that kind of locks it in place. So that's how you adjust the height of your plug hole. And then we've got this, which is the, for the want of a better word, the knob for screwing onto there. Now there's a Phillips screw here through the hole, so obviously that wants to be looking down at the bottom, and it goes onto the shaft, onto the cam, and you twist it and it pops up or goes down. It's as simple as that. I'll put this on later once it's in position, so we don't keep falling off. So all I've got to do now is get it over there. Well, it's in. So let's have a look and see how the legs have fallen. So this one on the front is falling pretty good, and the one at the back, not too bad. This one, pretty good, and the one at the back, pretty good as well. So I just need to adjust these feet now and make sure it's all level. So YouTube, we have a problem. I can't get the up in that way. I've got to turn it that way. Like that. So it's facing over there. And that means I've got to take the bath out because I've got to cut that pipe over there further back. Oh no. And as you can see, the bath waste is now connected. Now it's time to finish assembling the bath filler. First thing you need to do is put on this splash guard cover. Next is the handle. This just pushes on, and then there's a grub screw which I need to tighten up through the hole. And finally the spout, which again is just held on with two little grub screws. Now we're ready for filling the bath. So as you can see now, I've actually filled the bath with water. Well, technically I didn't. My wife filled the bath with water and actually had a bath. She'd been waiting that long for her bath. She had one before I'd even finished it. So while the water is still in the bath and it's at its full maximum weight, I'm just using some silicone now to seal around the bath and keep it in place to the wood. So now this bit of sealant is sealing the bath to the wood. I can now leave it overnight with the bath still full of water till the silicone goes off, and that should stop the bath moving. Now that's the end of day number 7. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. And in day number 8, if you can join me, I'm going to be doing a new plastic ceiling with new spotlights. So, catch you on that one. Cheers, guys.